Vanakkam. Please give a big hand for S Krishnan, who I have known for many years, but he's a son of Tamil Nadu. Now in the center, was finance secretary here, and he's in charge of the most important sector ministry in the government of India now. His ministry is in charge of a sector which is the largest employer, which is the largest exporter, and which is the single biggest force multiplier in keeping the economy moving, whether it is real estate, automobiles, consumption, all of that. So welcome to Think Education.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the whole big thing that is the Government of India ambition for semiconductors. And this is a kind of a dense subject. We started with some element of it, and now we're in ISM 2. So what was ISM 1, ISM 2? There are a lot of students here who look at this whole domain as a possible avenue for their future. So if we can have a quick explainer, what's the government's ambition, what we have looking at, what we have achieved?
Okay, I think semiconductors are a foundational aspect of technology in terms of whatever happens in the electronic space, whatever happens with all the consumer electronics we use, everything else that we use, semiconductors are an essential part of it. Practically each one of us is carrying, probably at any given point in time, half a dozen semiconductors in our pockets. So it's part of everyday life. It's part of the way the lighting works. It's a part of the way your car works, everything else. A point came home much more strongly during, say, the COVID pandemic, where suddenly, at that point, I was still here in Tamil Nadu. So you had Hyundai making all these cars, but you couldn't roll any of them out of the factory because the semiconductor chips weren't there. So that is how important and foundational they've become across various sectors. And interestingly enough, for a very long time, although India has always wanted to be part of the semiconductor action ever since the semiconductor laboratory was set up in Mohali in the 70s, we never actually got down to establishing semiconductor manufacturing facilities at scale in this country. And to that extent, there was an attempt in the mid-2000s which didn't work because we didn't have a policy framework in place. So the national policy on electronics in 2012 actually first recognized that this is an area where government subsidies will be needed. Across the world, government subsidies are provided for establishing semiconductor facilities because it's a heavy investment segment, very, very heavy capital investment. And at the same time, you're not assured of profits and the cycle is much longer. Now, that policy took a while to translate into action, and it's only when the India Semiconductor Mission 1.0 came up in 2021 that there was some serious action on how this should go forward. And in 22, finally, the final version of the ISM 1.0 came up, and we have thus far under ISM 1.0, 10 semiconductor plants across the country approved. The first of them on February 28th, 2 days ago, first commercial production started at the Micron plant in Sanand in Gujarat, which I think is a true landmark because for the first time you have a commercial grade semiconductor manufacturing facility in the country. And you will hopefully have another 3 or 4 rolling out before the end of this calendar year. And the 10 of them should be up and running in about 2 years' time. So it is time since we committed all our money under the ISM 1.0, India Semiconductor Mission 1.0. In the budget for 26-27, ISM 2.0 was announced as the next phase of this program. Now, just to give you a very quick update on what the semiconductor mission is all about, it consists of 2 or 3 major components. First is the Fabs, as they call foundries where the silicon chips are actually etched and they are got ready. The wafers are got ready. We have one of those plants coming up. The Tatas are building the first of those at Dholera. And then there are the packaging units, those which slice and dice the chips and package them into smaller usable formats, which then go into various electronics goods of various kinds. So we have 8 of those. One unit is a fab come an ATMP plant, and that is for a specific kind of semiconductors. They're called compound semiconductors, which are mostly used for power conversion and those elements. And in addition, we have something called display semiconductors. So far, we have not had a plant which has come up in display semiconductors yet, and that is something we'll be aiming for in the phase 2 of the ISM also. Now, of course, globally, the semiconductors, there's a famous Moore's law. They keep halving in size every 18 months or so, and they've become smaller and smaller. The smaller semiconductors now are 1 or 2 nanometers. Very, very heavy in terms of investment. Currently, it's only TSMC which is capable of manufacturing that. There's another plant coming up in Japan which will do 2 nanometer semiconductors. Even Intel does not have that technology with them yet. So we are not aiming for the cutting edge or leading nodes as they are called. We are aiming at what are called legacy nodes, which are in use far more in a range of applications, since the costs are more reasonable, and that is something which a country like India can afford to invest in, because costs tend to exponentially increase below a particular
The thinner
level.
they are, the smaller they are,
The
the
smaller
more
they are,
expensive.
the more expensive they are to make, and the capital investment you need is much more. So since we are in Chennai, I can use a Tamil phrase to describe it, Veraluketa Veekam. So that is what we are attempting to do in semiconductors at present, and eventually organically move towards the smaller and smaller nodes.
So if I were to sort of give an analogy for this, in the semiconductors part of the world, are we in the Maruti moment or are we in the Hyundai moment? Maruti came in the 80s and the Hyundai experiment
I
came in
would
the
say
90s.
we are somewhere in the Hyundai moment, and moving a little further down. Because, I mean, you see, there aren't many countries in the world where this is made. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's made in the United States, it's made in Taiwan, it's made in China, it's made in Germany, it's made in about a handful of countries across the world. So you're really breaking into a new technology, and you are getting into a space which is significant. And we have one big advantage. We should also remember that in terms of semiconductor design, because now the industry is breaking into 2 parts.
Mostly Indians, I am told.
20% of the international workforce in semiconductor design is Indian.
There are
And
more people in
India.
Amsterdam
And in
doing
India.
this apparently.
And in India. So practically every large fabless company in the world, Qualcomm, Broadcom, Intel, AMD, everybody has huge development centers based out of India. And, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Gurgaon, everywhere.
So I want to sort of bring in data centers and the threat of AI and others in between. But a fundamental question. In 1962, after the 62 war, the Homi Bhabha committee was formed, which identified 2 competitiveness, 2 points where India had competitive edge, software and hardware. And over 40, 50 years now, we've seen every time we have the great idea, and you said rightly that in 2000 we had this idea of the semiconductor thing. I remember in the 90s, the slogan was no potato chips. When liberalization happened, no potato chips, yes to silicon chips, no to potato chips. But potato chips took off, but silicon chips didn't take off. So what is it that one thing, I mean, there is a requirement of cash, capital and all. Why does it take like the 2021 moment also for this to sort of translate was because the world discovered what they thought was a global supply chain was actually a Chinese supply chain. What was India's handicap?
I would say that, I think in some ways, in the post, say, mid-90s, the famous Washington consensus and everything else, the impression was that, you could trade and you could actually build on comparative advantage and trade on that basis, and therefore you'd be assured supplies. I think what COVID, the pandemic established and what the changing geopolitics established is that that's no longer valid. You have to have resilience in your supply chains, you have to have diversification. And I think that is what will now make the value chain in India, and that is what will now make manufacture of semiconductors in India a value proposition. Because even if it is slightly higher cost than it would be in some other alternate jurisdiction, because you want to maintain the resilience of the supply chain, people are prepared to pay that.
So
extra
that
cost.
resilience translates into our Atmanirbhar movement.
That in a sense, yes.
Okay. So let's shift gear to the AI summit in Delhi. Now, there are two visions of the AI summit. One major headline grabbing mess, whatever organizational issues that were there. And the other is so many of the heads of state, heads of government, heads of companies who had come. Give us a view of why it looked like that it had been badly organized. Was that an error? Was that part of the hunger of people to sort of be there? So the first day, all the headlines and all the major newspapers and global publications was about the mess. The second day, the headlines, second, third day, the headlines changed to India's moment and how India is going to be sort of. Was the first part avoidable, not avoidable? Did you see?
I think, no, I mean, let me first emphasize what this particular summit was about. I think it's important to traverse that history. When all of these AI summits started in November 2023 in Bletchley Park in the UK, it was called the AI Safety Summit. Everyone was worried about what AI was going to bring, what's going to happen. And it's shifted slowly into AI Action Summit, AI Innovation Summit, and finally we came to AI Impact Summit in this summit. So fundamentally demonstrating what is it that you'd be able to do with AI? What is the kind of impact that it would have on the lives of people? What would it mean to individuals? What would it mean to India? And where is the opportunity for countries in the global south to actually leverage AI or to ride this technology wave to grow? The second aspect was about inclusion and democratization of access to AI technologies. I think some of the stories that you hear about, how expensive it is and why it costs so much and how energy intensive it is also possibly an attempt to build a moat around the technology, saying that not everybody can do it. It's meant for the big boys and you guys have to stay out of it. I think what we have done and demonstrated conclusively through the India AI Summit and the Impact Summit is, number one, that you can democratize this technology, both in terms of access and in terms of aspiration, that people can actually be part of what needs to happen. That was conclusively demonstrated. And two, that you could set the narrative around it and you could actually talk about the governance of AI in the days to come in a way that it would actually work for people. And that, I think, is a decisive moment of the AI Impact Summit, and that's something which we have delivered on. You look at the other contrasts. 91 countries have signed on to the declaration. That includes the United States, China, UK, Brazil, a whole host of France, a whole host of countries. You would recall that last year in France, neither the US nor the UK signed. And China was not even invited. So to that extent, the way that we've been able to build a bridge across various countries in this particular space, I think is again something which is huge. And third, you really actually let in a whole bunch of students, researchers, innovators from across the country into that space to demonstrate two things. One, to understand what it is, to hear from the best minds who had collected there. We had some of the best minds. We had Sam Altman, we had Demis Hassabis, who won the Nobel Prize and head of Google DeepMind. We had Dario Amodei, Anthropic, all of whom are in the news right now, and a whole host of other international experts in the space. So, I mean, Indian audiences had a direct exposure to so many of them across we did almost 650 sessions of various kinds. And added to that is the important point that Indian companies, and we had nearly about 1,000 startups and about 400 other Indian companies who had an opportunity to display the kind of products, the kind of applications and solutions they had developed, and the number of inquiries they received, the number of people from across the world who came and saw what was going on there and were in a position to actually place or follow up with inquiries was incredible. I mean, that's the kind of feedback we got. Compare this again with Paris, and I was there, where we had about 35 of these display things, whereas we had close to 1,000.
There's no question that the span of global leaders, both political and technology leaders who were there, was clear. And that this document came out about the impact where for the first time US and China have both signed, that's also fair. But somehow the impression that went out, the stories that went out in the first 2 days were all about the traffic mess or the crowd management issues or the dog which didn't bark, the Galgotia story, all of that came through. So is it that these are now part of what we call the Indian story? In a big wedding, there will be things.
No, I think okay, let's be clear on this. The first day, I think some of the angst which some people had was, see, there are 1,000 stalls. So each stall has about 5 to 6 people. So there are about 5 to 6,000 people inside. Few other curious onlookers who enter. And then the Prime Minister is expected to visit at 5 o'clock. So naturally, they had to be asked to leave. And it had not yet been open to members of the public. So I think somewhere there was a wrong message that some people got. And therefore, some little bit of confusion there around, when they were asked to leave, exit those halls. At the same time, where the sessions were going on, because, the entire crowd was in the sessions, you had, only standing room in so many of the halls, and which in itself was an extremely energizing and engaging experience for many of the people who had never seen, an audience, that engaged an audience before. So I think from that angle, there's really no issue. And frankly, about that, a Chinese dog being sort of, or rather a Chinese-made robo, which somebody claimed orally, who was not probably briefed about the issue, that, we've done it through research and things. I would say that in some ways, I honestly don't know why it became such a big issue.
Okay. So
because honestly, it's somebody who's just saying something orally. How do you even sort of, you don't sit and wet every, what are you going to say? Are you going to say this? Are you going to say that? That's not the way we run these things. We are trying to innovate, and we are trying to get people in there to try and say, what are the areas that you're going to look at? And I think it is really a disservice to so many others who had such outstanding exhibits and outstanding things to show for themselves, the kind of applications they do.
Remarkable thing.
Like this
for me, the remarkable thing about the AI Summit was that we got this message across the country, and that's the Prime Minister's ability to communicate, was that there is such a thing as AI, this is what is going to happen. So let the sleeping dogs sleep or lie or whatever. Let's move on to the other aspect. So now, since this was called the AI Impact Summit, I wanted your view on how is it impacting India's largest employment sector, the IT sector. These are issues now people are talking about. People coming back home, pink slips, every day everybody's sort of chasing. The stock market gives you a different idea of IT services companies' valuations. Then the next day it says that it's not just about the companies, it's about the consumption. And the third day there is this agentic story that comes that delivery service may not exist or whatever, how it is. How does one, this is moving too fast. I won't hold this on any government or any policies domain, because the technology is evolving so far. Even those guys who are in AI don't know what it can achieve at a given point of time. So how does Government of India plan or think about these issues?
I think we've engaged very closely with companies in the information technology space, all the services and IT-enabled services companies. And that's not now. We've been engaging with them for the last year,
So
year
did
and
they
a half.
have an idea that there will be X quantum of job loss or slower hiring or loss of business?
I think the basic thing there as regards jobs is they understand that the nature of jobs is going to change. I think we are in a situation where the jobs are not going to be in the traditional programming or coding sense, and the jobs are going to be in other segments. When you actually look at what you're going to, you're looking at artificial intelligence as something which will replace coding and programming jobs. True. But then AI actually gives you an opportunity to increase productivity across the economy. It's a horizontal technology which applies in every area of the economy otherwise, whether it is in manufacturing, whether it is in agriculture, whether it is in services of various kind, in healthcare, in education, even in the publishing business or in the media business. In each of these areas, it's likely to have an impact. The key thing is, how do you adapt it to that sector? What are the kind of solutions and applications you find to be used in that sector? How do you develop those and how do you deploy those? So the new jobs are going to be created there. The new jobs are going to be created with a bunch of people who are going to be people who have, for want of a better word, domain knowledge in their specific space and who understand what the technology is about to see that it gets effectively deployed in those segments. So I would say that net, and MeitY has also done a detailed study in this area, that you could lose about 20 lakh jobs in the traditional ITES sectors, but you could also add about 40 lakh jobs, 2 million lost, 4 million added, in the sense that I was telling you about, in terms of developing the applications, developing the solutions, and actually deploying them both at home and overseas. And that's precisely one of the things we were attempting to do through the Impact Summit too, to actually showcase Indian companies who are developing those capabilities.
So we have just 4 minutes left now. I wanted to sort of get your sense on the three major areas where India we are hopeful that there will be AI solutions: education, health, and agriculture. So nearly 50% of the population produces 1/6 of the national income. That has to change. Healthcare, preventive healthcare is not, we have an insurance because we can't cover preventive. And education is kind of, less said the better kind of story in the sense of where we are, what we are pushing for. So is there like a focus in the ministry or in the government, okay, we will deploy AI here?
I don't think there's a lack of focus at all. I think when you look at agriculture, for instance, the agri stack is something which has now been deployed. What is called the Bharat Vistar. That program is something which is in the process of deployment. In healthcare, specific applications have been looked at in the diagnostic space, in the preventive space, and many of them are getting added as we
So
speak.
these are startups that are doing this.
Both startups and established companies, in terms of their applications of this in specific areas, are coming up all the time. And this is something which is adding to this all the time. In the education space also, I think it's nobody's case, especially in governance and in those spaces, it's nobody's case that we have enough frontline workers, enough people to deliver those services. So clearly the productivity gains and what it would mean with few people added but substantially better services is a huge opportunity, both in terms of employment and in terms of improved quality of services and therefore productivity.
So could we tell the audience that one of these sessions, Prabhu's 15th ThinkEdu or the 16th ThinkEdu conference might have a couple of agentic AI here as part of the panel discussions?
Now, I don't know which edition of ThinkEdu.
This is the 14th one.
14th, okay. You might be chatting with the bot and not with me. So that could happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Krishnan. I'm sure this conversation could be longer and more detailed, But given the denseness of the subject, I sort of wanted to understand the semiconductor plan and then...
Not the easiest thing to handle late in the afternoon, I'm sure. So, thank you.
Thank you.